What if Aegon the Third wasn't forced to watch his mother be eaten by Sunfyre? Let's start this fire. I am Maester Black, and I'll tell you a different ending to the dance and a different beginning for a boy that canon calls the dragonbane. Dragonstone's halls were smoke and panic the day that the queen was taken. Rhaenyra Targaryen wore ash like a cloak. Aegon the Third, her son, small and stubborn, clung to her hand. Outside, Sunfyre's broken wings scraped the stone floor like knives. Men were shouting, but Aegon the Second's voice cut through the chaos.
Bring her! And the boy!
History says Aegon the Younger was dragged to watch what came next. Not here, not this time. A Dragonkeeper, silently loyal to Rhaenyra, stepped from a shadow. Hareth, a quiet man with scarred hands and salt in his beard.
Your Grace,
he whispered to Rhaenyra.
Please forgive me, but I must.
He pried the boy's fingers free. Aegon kicked, furious, terrified. Rhaenyra cupped his face, swift and fierce.
Aegon,
she said, steady as a mountain.
Listen to me. You do not need to see everything to remember it. You do not need to burn to know the cost of fire.
Sunfyre roared. The stone trembled. Rhaenyra looked to Hareth. Her voice did not break.
Take him now, please.
Hareth hauled the boy into the bones of Dragonstone, down through tunnels warm as a fever, past sluices where molten rock hissed like serpents. Behind them, footsteps thundered and then turned away. Hareth knew these veins better than any map. He led Aegon to a door of iron, ringed in salt. The keeper's hands shook as he turned the key.
Keep quiet,
Hareth said, setting a finger to his lips.
Whatever you hear, don't run back.
They slipped into a cavern lit in green from seams in the stone. The air smelled of brimstone and salt spray. There, like a black tide in the dark, uncoiled something vast, something even Hareth has never seen. It was the cannibal, the old terror of Dragonstone, untamed, unbiddable, lifted a horn-toothed head. Its eyes were tidal pools, deep and empty. Aegon's breath locked in his throat. Hareth did what only keepers do when they have nothing else left. He bowed, slow, honest.
We honor you. We are leaving.
The cannibal's tongue flicked, tasting them. Smoke trembled from its nostrils. It did not strike. They moved along the cavern's edge, keeping to wet stone and shadow. When they reached a spill of light, Hareth crouched and pointed up.
Raven stairs. They take you to the sea tower. The queen will come, boy. She'll find you.
A lie. Maybe. Maybe not.
You will listen to her last words, even if the wind has to bring them.
Aegon nodded, small and stiff. Behind them, through stone and air, came the terrible echo of a dragon's scream and the clash of men's laughter that wasn't laughter at all. The noise reached the boy, but the sight did not. He pressed his forehead against the damp stone and kept breathing. When Hareth finally ferried him across the night sea in a skiff black as ink, the boy stared at the wake and said nothing for hours. Not one tear fell. He had not watched, so the grief could not seize his throat by its worst image. It went inward. That was enough to bend the world. Years pass and the war bled out soon after. Aegon the Second died, to poison, to plots, to the weight of his own decisions. The singers can squabble over the details. The realm wanted stillness. The realm wanted a child king to be a seal on a treaty. Aegon the Younger knelt before the Iron Throne. The blades glared like teeth. He did not flinch. The lords saw a quiet boy and thought him easily guided.
How many dragons remain?
He asked the first night he slept in the Red Keep. The Hand, Lord Peak for now, sharp-eyed and sure of his place, cleared his throat.
Few, Your Grace. The wild cannibal still haunts Dragonstone. Silverwing roosts near a lake in the Reach, riderless, but hale. Sheep-stealer is said to have flown east on a cold wind with a girl on his back. If you credit such tales, the hatchling Morning survived, clutched by your kinswoman Rhaenyra. And there are eggs, aye, but...
He hesitated.
In truth, they've been stubborn.
Aegon looked to the window, where the moon wore a thin smile.
Stubborn,
He repeated, as if the word were a lock, and he was learning the shape of its key. Baela, scarred, bright-eyed Daemon's daughter, stood in the doorway with her arms crossed.
The realm needs rest, not dragons.
The realm needs both rest and a future that can guard it.
Baela frowned.
You were spared the worst of it. Good. Keep being spared.
I wasn't spared. I was taught. My mother taught me with her last breath. I didn't need to see her die to hear what it means.
Well then, what did it mean?
Baela pressed.
That power without purpose eats its own. So give power a purpose.
They called it folly. They called it hope. They called it a child's dream. The boy king called it policy. The ravens flew. Decrees followed. First, he rebuilt the dragon pit, but not as it had been. Gone were the chains and cruel spikes and cold, damp cells. In their place rose a vaulted hall with a roof that opened to the sun like a palm. Pools of warmed water for wing joints, perches of old oak beams, fragrant with resin. A ring of sand for landings, a warren of warm, egg-sung nurseries lined with carved stone shells that held heat through the night. The city started calling it Dragon Breath Hall before the masons finished. The name stuck. Second, he raised an order from the dust. The Dragonkeepers, sworn to care for the great beasts and teach those who would ride them. Hareth of all men was given the keys.
I'm a keeper, not a courtier.
Hareth muttered, the day the king placed a silver torque on his neck.
Good. I've had enough courtiers.
Third, he wrote an oath and made it law, the oath of ash and air. Riders would swear to the realm before they swore to a banner. Dragons were not to be used to burn fields, towns, or granaries. They would patrol coasts against pirates, winter roads against raiders, and be summoned for war only by a council of 7. The king, the hand, 2 high lords of different regions, a maester, a septon or septa, and the first keeper, on pain of treason. The punishments for poaching, egg-stealing, and cruelty were made very clear and very public. Unwin Peak did not like it.
It binds the crown.
Peak said, voice smooth as polished bone.
You put reins on yourself, Your Grace.
Aegon regarded him for a long time.
Reins exist so the horse doesn't break its own legs.
Peak smiled without smiling.
And who holds the reins when Your Grace is grown tired of riding?
The realm. That's the point, Lord Peak. We are creating a new kingdom, one built upon law and order.
Word traveled like wildfire, less deadly, more hopeful. From White Harbor to Old Town, boys and girls came, called dragon seeds once as an insult, now as a title to be earned. Stable strong, river swift, mountain steady, they learned to listen before they shouted dracares. They learned to stand in the sand with a hand outstretched and a heart steady, to tell a dragon they weren't prey and weren't threat, but something worth sharing sky with. Not all found partners, most didn't, but some did. Morning grew quick and bright, all pearl pink and quicksilver, with a temper like a spring storm. Rhaenyra would laugh as she smoothed her snout.
You're vain, you know. You preen more than a swan.
Silverwing came to the new hall by her own choice. The old girl circled the city for an hour, measuring wind and laughter and fear, then spiraled down in a glittering rain of scales and dust, settling onto the sand with a sigh. Aegon stood at the edge of the ring, hands open, every muscle tight from pretending not to tremble.
Welcome.
He said softly. Silverwing blinked. The old queen lowered her head until her brow pressed his chest, very gently, as if blessing a prayer. The cannibal did not come. The keepers did not go looking for him. Some things want their own world. Aegon allowed that too.
We don't tame the sea, we build ships.
As for Sheepstealer, well, sailors brought rumors from the stepstones of a brown dragon gliding at dusk, catching fish with neat tilts of his wings. Once, on a fogged moon, a woman with salt-crusted hair left a coil of smoked eels outside Dragon Breath Hall, took nothing, and vanished by dawn.
Nettles.
Hareth said, half smiling.
Let the wind be her herald and the dark her armor.
Aegon agreed. Not every ally wears a tabard. And what next? Ah, the eggs. They were stubborn, yes, but stubborn isn't the same as barren. The keepers warmed them with riverstone pits and steam from captured vents, then cooled them in night air and lulled them with low humming, copying the pitch of old mothers. Aegon ordered that no egg be cracked for jewels or ornaments, no shell carved for keepsakes until 3 winters passed without life. This was decreed to ensure that if a dragon egg was fertile, every effort was made to ensure the dragon's survival. A stark difference from Aegon the Younger of canon.
We can adorn ourselves with patience,
he said, and the realm, astonished, learned too. The first new hatchling in years clawed his way free on a rainy afternoon that made the whole city smell of wet iron and hope. He was coal black with a single white scale like a star under his left eye. He sneezed smoke, scowled, and bit Hareth's thumb, lightly, as if counting teeth.
What do we call him?
Proof.
They named him Gloam instead, because at dusk, he disappeared against the sky. All this would have meant little if the king had not also ruled, and ruled hard where hardness was needed. A Dornish lord sent raiders up the green blood to take cattle and copper. Old habits die last. Aegon summoned the Council of Seven. They wrangled, they argued, they read the oath. Then the king stood.
I will not march an army. I will not burn the town.
What then?
Peake asked, tone dry as driftwood.
We will not go to war. Period.
The next week, the Dornish lord woke to find his ships intact, his men alive, and every mast in his harbor blistered and black. Sails dropped into the water like wilted flowers. Silverwing had flown at daybreak with 2 young dragons flanking her like hounds. They never fired the wharves. They seared only the masts and the topmost yards, charring rope and spar so neatly it looked like some god had traced lines with a coal stick. At noon, a letter arrived, bearing a seal of black glass. It was short. Stop. Trade in daylight. Raid in darkness no more. There will not be a second warning. The Dornish lord, who loved his ships more than his pride, understood. The raiding ceased. Trade began. Aegon sent grain at half price that winter anyway.
We should make it easier to be our ally than our foe.
He told Baela when she raised an eyebrow.
Power isn't only the fist. Sometimes it's an open hand that can create peace.
Braavosi envoys came with their carefully polite faces.
We have memories of dragons,
one said,
and they are not sweet ones.
Aegon nodded.
Mine aren't either,
he said, and the envoy blinked.
So, let's write better ones. No chains for dragons, no bounties for slayers, no hiring of Dragonfire by any free city or guild. In return, ships marked with the 7-pointed star on blue will never be turned to ash under my rule, not even by mistake.
You offer a promise,
the envoy said,
and bear the cost if you break it.
Yes, that's what a promise is.
The Braavosi, who respect those who pay their debts, signed. Others followed. They called it the Sky Lantern Compact because the signing feast ended with 100 lanterns rising from the Blackwater like tiny moons. Children pointed. Even Peake, who hated the whole thing, had to admit it looked like peace. Years slid by. The realm learned a new pattern. The Dragon Breath Hall opened its doors to sun and sea wind by day, closed its vents, and sang its low songs by night. Keepers walked with quiet feet and quick eyes, hands smelling of oil, mint, and soot. Younglings fetched water and wrote notes and held their breath when wings shadowed the courtyard. Some grew into riders, most grew into keepers, none grew into fools. A book appeared on the Maester's lists, On the Care and Husbandry of Dragons, by Hareth, with additions by Maester Black. Dry as toast in parts, yes, but it set in order what had once been rumor. The right pitch for calming a youngster, the way sun strengthens shell, the trick of rubbing a coughed ember from a raw throat without losing a finger, which herbs tend to soothe and which send a dragon into rages. There was a chapter titled On Grief that made hard men put their hands over their hearts and stare at the wall for a while. When they die, it read, stand where they stood, breathe where they breathed, and say their name. Then say your own. Both are needed. Aegon married, quietly, sensibly. He had children who grew up with the smell of hot sand and brimstone, as if it were just another kitchen spice. They were taught the oath of ash and air before they were taught their letters.
Why not use them to conquer more?
One lord of the narrow sea asked at a feast, slightly drunk on sweet wine and his own memories.
1,000 ships will bend to one dragon's shadow.
Aegon set down his cup.
Then let 1,000 ships sail in sunlight. Conquest is a door that is easiest to open the first time. It sticks afterward. It sticks, and it bleeds you each time you try it again.
The hall laughed, uneasy. They called him Dragon Breath behind his back at first, meant as a jest, a nod to all his new rules and new songs, and new soft talk about hard power. Then the name turned and faced them, and the jest became a title, Dragon Breath, the king who taught the realm to breathe with dragons instead of choking on them. A statue rose in the yard of the hall, not of Aegon, but of an open hand. Beneath it, a plaque read, Fire obeys as far as you plan, and no farther. Plan farther. Silverwing lived long, longer than anyone had a right to expect, sunning herself on the hall's roofs like a queen who'd given her crown back and didn't miss it. Morning became a sleek streak of dawn across the city, in love with her own reflection, and the gasp of awe from the children. Gloam, moody and beautiful, took to flying at dusk along the Rose Road, silent as a prayer. 3 other hatchlings came in time, each different as stars. The cannibal was glimpsed once, years later, crossing the sky from east to west without a sound, at such a height that he was only a line of night. Through daylight, Hareth watched, tears cutting clean tracks through soot on his cheeks.
Let him be.
I was.
Hareth murmured.
He let me be once.
If you ask me when the realm truly believed, I'll tell you this. It was not a treaty, not a hatching, not some grand covenant. It was a small thing. A baker's shop caught fire on the street of Flower. Coals tipped, wind wrong, bad luck. Flames ran up old timbers like laughter. The bucket line stumbled. Aegon was in council. The bells were already ringing when a shadow passed across the street. Morning came down, careful as a cat, her huge body between flames and the row of houses. She sucked air and exhaled. Not fire, but heat. A controlled roar that shoved the blaze back from the eaves, long enough for men to douse it. Children shrieked in joy. Their mothers sobbed. The baker, shaking, pressed both floury hands to Morning's foreleg. The dragon tilted her head, very pleased with herself. That night, Aegon walked the street of Flower, with soot on his boots and ash in his hair. He bought a loaf too black at the edges and ate it as if it were a feast. And so it went. Dragons patrolled the skies, like lighthouses. The realm rested without growing soft. Power had purpose, fear had a leash, grief had a room to sit in, and a door to leave by. He never called himself Dragonbane. The bards didn't either. They called him Aegon Dragonbreath, the king who rebuilt the hall, wrote the oath, opened the roof, and closed the door on the worst of our habits. If you ask what changed, the answer is simple. One small mercy at the edge of a cavern, one boy not made to watch, made room for one great mercy later. He grew into a man who believed power could be aimed like a lantern, not spilled like oil. History is not kind, but sometimes it is kinder when we choose how to look. In this world, the dragons lived because a boy's last sight of his mother was her face, not her end. He remembered the words, not the horror. And that was enough to save the sky. You've made it this far. Do me a favor and like and subscribe, and check out more from our channel by clicking on this video or this playlist.